the daily sort of inductive case? Is it something that we see happening? Life just
intuitively,
Intuitively,
it seems highly unlikely.
Could you create a essay through a unimaginable number of trials of randomly generating alphanumeric characters?
Well, presumably it's possible, but I wouldn't bet on it.
No, we're talking about effectively possible.
Oh, okay. Maybe not.
Okay, experts in statistics and probability, once something is beyond, let's say, 1 in 10 to the 60th or so power, okay, statisticians say it's for all intents and purposes effectively impossible.
That's intuitive, yeah.
Yeah. Well, a protein, the coding sequences for a rudimentary protein of 100 amino acids is 1 in 10 greater than 200 zeros. That's just for a protein. Mm-hmm. That's not for the entire genome of the animal kingdom. In order for evolution to be true, you have to have random variation mutations producing the coding sequences that would be aided in a step-by-step survival. Even if you throw at it an unimaginable amount of time and an unimaginable amount of Earth-like planets, you could throw trillions upon trillions of Earth-like planets over 14 billion years. That wouldn't even scratch the surface to produce the coding sequences for a protein.
Yeah, like I said, it seems intuitively unlikely.
When Darwin came up with his theory of evolution, wow, it sounded so scientific. Remember, this was in the middle to the latter part of the 19th century, long before the double helix was discovered in 1953. But even when it was discovered, still we didn't understand how complex it is. It's so complex today that much of the coding sequences we just don't understand. Okay? There's a certain chunk of it that we do understand, but a lot of it that we still don't. The idea that it came through just various random occurrences aided by natural. Look, this is a ludicrous example. It's a good example in human thinking, no matter how educated people are, how much smart they are, that once an idea gets entrenched, okay, that they're going to hold on to it no matter how ridiculous it is. Once DNA was discovered and we started unraveling at least what we do know about it over the decades in the middle to the latter part of the 20th century, evolution, the theory of evolution should have died. But the reason why it didn't die, because then you only have one alternative, and that is to acknowledge a creator, and they don't want to do that. So they cling to a pseudoscientific theory.
So in the Bonson-Stein debate, Bonson asks Stein two questions, right? The first one is, do all electrons repel one another? And then the second question is, how do you know they're going to be repelling each other 10 minutes after this debate? Like, he's asking about the regularity of nature, right? What do you figure Bonson means by that?
It means that unbelievers, when they invoke directly or indirectly certain fundamental parameters of existence without which they couldn't speak meaningfully or intelligibly, they cannot give a rational metaphysical justification for it. And in fact, during the debate, Stein says, oh, well, that's just the way nature works. It's just the way it is.
Do you think that, like, Christian theology says all electrons repel one another? I mean, is it possible in a world ordered by God that, like, a strange, unlikely circumstance, two electrons could attract one another that we just haven't come across yet?
I don't know.
Yeah, okay. Because that's like one version of induction.
The point is this: induction depends upon the pre-acceptance of the uniformity of nature. Without presupposing the uniformity of nature and that which grounds it, then induction doesn't mean anything. So, for example, if I inductively come to a conclusion that there are certain regularities, and then later on down the road I come to an exception, then I can revise my inductive reasoning.
Right.
In a Christian worldview.
Right.
Okay, just like somebody could say, "Oh, well, as a Christian, I used to think that the sun went around the Earth, but now I believe that the Earth rotates on its axis."
Yeah.
Right.
So,
There's a bigger problem here. It's called the uniformity of nature. They have no way to identify and defend what it is that instantiates and sustains the uniformity of nature.
yeah, which means there might not be something like that.
Well, under their principle, if a foundational parameter such as God is it verifiable, or you can't observe, test, or repeat it, then it's to be dismissed. Well, then they're going to have to dismiss the uniformity of nature, because you can't use an empirical investigation to justify the uniformity of nature, because empirical investigations presuppose the uniformity of nature.
Yeah, which means, like Bonson's second question, that's what that's about, right? Like, maybe right now all electrons repel one another, but that could change 10 minutes from now.
What we know is God has revealed that he's created a world where there is regularity along with some irregularity. Okay. In the non-Christian world, everything is shrouded in mystery.
When you mean some irregularity, do you mean miracles?
No, I'm talking about things that are regular along with things that are not regular. Our world is a mixture of regularity and irregularity, continuity and discontinuity. So if the regularity that we believe in strongly, it's either going to be revelatory of and dependent upon the mind, the purpose, and the plan of God that makes it real, or somebody will be operating from another metaphysic that something else makes it real. Well, so, what is, and Bonson's question was getting at, well, what makes it real? Since he's decided that it's not God.
Sorry,
well, what's wrong with that mystery?
What's an example of irregularity, like non-miraculous irregularity in nature? I'm a little surprised to hear that.
Sometimes it doesn't rain.
But I mean, it doesn't rain because of the water cycle.
If everything was regular, then nothing would change.
Example of regularity is if I strike a match under the same conditions today as I did yesterday, the match will light. The irregularity is that it's a different match.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
The point is this, is that the unbeliever refuses to acknowledge God as the ultimate fundamental parameter dictating and securing what fundamental parameters in the physical world exist under the rubric or umbrella of regularities and irregularities. So they believe that something else is securing regularity. Well, according to their criterion, they can't even believe that because it hasn't been proven to them. They want God to be proven, or so they claim. So, well, you haven't proven God, so I just lack belief in God. They don't have a rational basis to hold to the uniformity of nature. And appealing to predictive success is the usual, typical, stupid response by people in an attempt to justify it by pragmatism. But in a chance world, you can have any number of similar sequences. There's nothing that would prohibit that in a chance world.
Having different outcomes.
Yeah, anything can happen. Mm-hmm. In the Christian worldview, it's a closed system. The mind, the purpose, and the plan of God dictates what is, can be, and cannot be. When one rejects that, you're going to be in an open system where your model of reality is shrouded in ultimate mystery. Anything can happen. Anything can happen. Anything can happen.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Yeah, anything can happen.
What's wrong with that is because it destroys all reason and intelligibility. That's what's wrong with it.
Because there's nothing
I'm sure why that's
identify
true.
That.
Hold on a second.
It's because
who said what's wrong with that?
I did.
Who's I?
Cameron.
Okay, Cameron.
What's up?
If anything can happen, then you forfeit the ability to speak intelligibly. Because in order to speak intelligibly, it means that some things cannot be. For example, that an identity state cannot equal or coexist with its negation. If an identity state, such as the dog is wagging its tail, can equal or coexist with its denial, then it doesn't mean anything. The only reason why the dog wagging its tail is intelligible is because its negation cannot coexist. So in a world where anything can happen, okay, you forfeit your ability to speak meaningfully. Now, do you want to dispute what I just said?
I just want to say that included in the set of anything can happen is our world.
Okay, so what I just said to you went right over your head.
Well, no, I agree with you.
No,
without God, anything can happen, including our
your
world.
answer, are you listening to me? Cameron, are you a teenager?
Oh, I'm discernible.
That's discernible.
Cameron, are you a teenager?
I am not.
So,
okay, I want everyone to be quiet. If you don't want to get kicked out of the room, keep your mouth shut. I'm talking to Cameron.
The power of Christ compels you.
Okay, now, Cameron, are you a teenager?
No, I am not.
Okay, so then you're a legal adult. So then you should be able to understand this. Truth, reason, and intelligibility depends on the ability for there to be identity statements. Do you accept that?
Truth, reason, and what was the third one?
Truth, reason, and intelligibility.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Do you accept what I just said?
Yes, I do.
So,
are you just talking about
in
like
a world where anything can happen, an identity statement can be flatly contradicted? In other words, in order to make identity statements, its negation cannot coexist. Okay.
Well, sure, I agree with that, but that doesn't mean that I have to accept identity.
Cameron, stop bickering with me like a little child. I just explained this to you. Now I have to go over it again with you. If anything can happen, if anything can be, it destroys one's ability to articulate identity statements, because whatever you assert to be true, it can equal or coexist its negation. What would it mean? Cameron, what does it mean if I say the dog is in the backyard and at the same time and in the same sense the dog is not in the backyard? What does that mean, Cameron?
It's just a contradiction, right?
What does it mean, Cameron?
It's just a contradiction.
What does it mean, Cameron?
Do contradictions mean something?
I don't know what that means. I don't know.
Okay, listen, I feel like I'm dealing with a little child right here. Okay, stop playing little games with me. Okay, because I'm getting pissed. What does it mean to make an identity statement alongside, at the same time, in the same sense, invoking its negation as true? What would that mean?
I don't know. I replied to you a couple of times.
Okay, no, it wouldn't mean anything at all. The reason why identity. Okay, hey, Cameron, who are you more educated on this subject than I am?
I don't know.
Do you think you could give an example of what you're talking about?
The point is this: in order for something to mean something, right? For something to be, it cannot equal or coexist as negation. Otherwise, it wouldn't mean anything. Can a contradictory state of affairs actually exist?
I don't know.
Okay, well then you're uneducated. You shouldn't be talking on this topic. And in fact, you don't even live this way. You live every day, right? If somebody flatly contradicts what you believe, you're going to say, well, that can't be true. You don't live this way. But when you're in a conversation like this, you pull the, I don't know, Senator. I don't recall. Well, you do not live this way. You do not live this way. Do you? Do you live it? Because I'm not triggered. I'm irritated because you're bickering with me like a little teenager and you're playing a little game here. Oh, I don't know. Do you live this way? The contradictions are actually possible?
I didn't say that I believe that contradictions are possible.
Okay. Talking to you is like talking to a brick wall. Bye, Cameron.
So, Darth, I want to know like what contradiction he was making with the identity statement and then like negating it. You're
not making yourself clear.
Well, you asked him that question a bunch of times, and then you said it means nothing.
I pointed out to him in his colossal ignorance, right, that he thinks he's in a world where anything can happen, but he doesn't live this way. He doesn't think this way. Because if anything can be, then that means that contradictions can be true. Therefore, identity statements wouldn't mean anything because they could coexist with their negation. You understand now?
Oh, yeah, that makes sense, yeah.
Okay.
So why was he saying that?
Truth, reason, and intelligibility require that identity statements cannot equal or coexist with their negation. So that means in order to truth, reason, and intelligibility, some things cannot be. But in a world where anything can be, it destroys intelligibility.
I agree. Contradiction is impossible.
So the point is this: when you're in an open system and you give God the middle finger and you refuse to acknowledge his revelation of himself in creation, then you're in an open system. And in an open system, there is nothing that is concrete, that's identifiable and defensible, that dictates what is and cannot be.
Yep.
Consequently, anything can be, including contradictions.
Oh, I disagree with that.
What's an open system?
And if contradictions can be, you have no basis for meaning.
So wait, what's an open system?
An open system is where you refuse to acknowledge that God is the creator and the Lord over all, and that there's nothing that's identifiable or defensible that dictates what anything is. Anything can happen. So you have a closed system versus an open system. But you see, you people who want to give God, listen, do you hear me talking? So you people who want to give God the middle finger, you refuse to wake up and smell the coffee to realize that when you deny that God being the single concrete unifying ontological principle for everything, okay, when you refuse to do so, you also refuse to acknowledge that your metaphysic upon examination is not coherently defensible because you have nothing within the system that dictates anything. And if nothing dictates anything, anything can happen. And if anything can happen, there's no intelligibility.
So you think we're in a closed system?
I don't think. I know we're in a closed system. We're in a world where God has unambiguously and rationally, undeniably revealed himself through the entirety of creation. The entirety of creation from a subatomic level all the way up to a cosmological level exemplifies design. And you don't want to accept that it exemplifies design. So what you decide to do is opt and say it's an illusion of design, but that's not something that's defensible.
Included in the set of anything is our world.
How do you know we're in a...
I'm listening.
What'd you say?
I'm listening. Go ahead.
Yeah. Anything can happen. Included in the set of anything is our world, right? The world we live in is possible.
You're an idiot. Stop. If anything can happen, you cannot say anything intelligible because whatever you affirm can coexist with its negation, therefore destroying the uniqueness of what you say. How many times do I have to explain it to you?
So I don't think it entails contradiction. I think it makes contradiction impossible.
You're done. Have a nice day.
What? Why?
You see how deceitful people are? They know the truth of which I am speaking, but they don't care.